What's up, guys? Cassandra Carson here from Paralandra and the Life Project, and you're listening to the Weekly Pour podcast.
Hola, amigos. This is Billy Sheehan. You're listening to me right here and watching on the Weekly Pour podcast. Thank you.
Hey, this is Frank Fletcher. You're listening to the Weekly Pour podcast with TbT and Ace.
I'm Logan, right?
Yes.
That's how all right, I'll go now. What's up, everybody? It's Logan from All the Pretty Things, and you're listening to TbT and Ace on the Weekly Pour podcast.
Hey, guys. This is John Karabi from, just about every band but ABBA, and you are listening to the Weekly Pour podcast. Turn it up.
Hey, guys. It's Leather Leone, and you're listening to the Weekly Pour. Great metalheads, crazy music, because we all bleed metal. Ciao.
Yo guys, it's Mark McKay here, and you're listening to the Weekly Pour podcast. Crank it up.
My name's Reggie, and you are listening to the Weekly Pour podcast. Thanks so much for joining the most amazing twosome out there.
This is Mark Merrill, also known as Johnny B. Bad. It's a blessing to teach you a lesson at the Weekly Pour with TbT and Ace.
The most amazing things that can happen to a human being will happen to you if you lower your expectations. Welcome to the Weekly Pour podcast. Here are your hosts, TbT and Ace.
What's up, guys? I am TbT. That guy over there is Ace. And joining us in the middle is Sammy Lee with Red Rain. We'd like to welcome Sammy, who's the founding member and drummer for the Richmond, Virginia-based Red Rain. Red Rain takes 80s influences and steers them in a more contemporary direction, bridging the sounds of yesterday and today. The band has worked with Grammy Award-nominated multi-platinum producer David Ivory on both its releases, 2021 self-titled EP, and the band's latest release, Don't Look Back, which came out just this past Friday. Don't Look Back has an 80s influenced sound that will take you back to a time that produced many great bands that remain as popular today as they were 40 years ago. And it even sports a guest appearance from some guy named George Lynch. Ladies and gentlemen, it is our privilege to welcome Sammy Lee. Sammy, welcome.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Now, before anybody says anything, we realize there's a little bit of an echo going, but that's why we're going to have Sammy talk more than we are, because that'll cut down on that echo. So, first and foremost, congratulations on the release of the album. We've had a chance to listen to it even before it was released to the public, and damn, you guys did a great job.
Thank you so much. Thank you. A lot of hard work goes into that, but we're very excited about it.
Absolutely. Now, there's a number of tracks. I know you guys have released 3 singles so far, which is No Peace, No Love, Don't Look Back, and Here I Am, I believe, is the third one. Tell us about, because I know I've heard this story before, but tell us about the process of putting this album together and how it actually came to fruition.
Well, so, we were doing real well before COVID. COVID, as well as everybody else, it just stopped the world. So we had been touring and playing shows really off our EP, which was self-titled Red Rain. And not that nothing good came from COVID. We all know that. Every now and then you find something a little positive and a negative, and the positive was that we were able to slow down and write a new album, and that's really what happened. And it was written over COVID. Excuse me. So Bubba, who does most of the writing, the lyrics, was able just to really get at it and write some killer tunes that he brought into the band, and the band was able to fine tune some of that just to present to David Ivory, and then David Ivory put his touch on it. And as you mentioned, and thankfully so, we believe it's an unbelievable finished product.
Yeah, without a doubt. And there's there's a number of tracks on there that I've listened to, quite a few times just to, get more of a feel. But holy cow, this is a rockin' album. I love it.
Thank you. It means a lot. That's the one thing. We're a band that started playing together in about 2000. We started playing together about 2015, and the one goal that we had was we never played a cover. That's the thing, And so when you find that you're writing your material and putting it out there, and listen, if you can find one person that likes it, that's unbelievable. But we've been getting some great feedback, and it really means a lot to us. And again, we're very excited about it.
Right. When you say Bubba, you're talking about Carlton, McMichael, Bubba.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, Bubba is it's Carlton Bubba McMichael. Bubba's his nickname.
Right, and he's the singer and guitar player, one of them.
Guitar player, correct.
Right, and he does not look like a Bubba. I don't know how he got that name, but he does not look like a Bubba.
Well, we are from Richmond, Virginia. There's a lot of Bubbas in Richmond, Virginia.
You took that right out of my mouth, because that's exactly what I was going to say. Yep.
Yeah, trust me, he fits in with he's a Bubba. He's a Bubba.
Yeah.
I've known Bubba a long time, though. We were in and out of bands, since the 80s. So we're really tight, close friends. Bubba's also I'm not sure if that's in the notes or not. Bubba's the co-founder of Red Rain. Both Bubba and I co-founded Red Rain. So, but we have Stevie Shred, who plays guitar, backing vocals, lead guitarist, and Larry Moore, who's our bass player.
So, is this everyone's first professional endeavor, Red Rain?
No, it's not. Larry Moore was... I don't like to speak out of turn on this one. Larry Moore was the original, or I think was one of the original bass players of Firehouse before they were Firehouse. So in Richmond, they were White Heat and toured up and down the East Coast. Larry was in that long time ago. As far as like going on the national, like what we've been doing, maybe the first for some of us, but Bubba and I were in a band before Red Rain that actually, we were able to open for a couple national acts. One of the acts we opened for was Cheap Trick. So we, I know it's not metal, but Cheap Trick is Cheap Trick.
They have a very soft spot in my heart.
Yeah, right. I love Cheap Trick. So we've all had been on some bigger stages. Stevie was on bigger stages. I don't know offhand who Stevie had opened for, but I know he did. I think he did he was in a couple bands. I think one of them opened for Brett Michaels. So we've all been there. We've all been on stage, but these guys are professional, and you get on stage and you love what you do, and it comes, I think it comes naturally, if you really love what you're playing and you generally get along with the guys, I think it's a natural fit.
Was this always the goal? I mean, that sounds silly in a sense, to be a professional and get this record contract or whatever you've done. But what I mean is, you've been around, you've been in different bands. Did something change that make you want to kick here and get a contract, or was that always something you were just working toward?
Well, we're a little older than some of the bands start out. Years ago, this is what I wanted, and I know I think I can speak for everybody else. It's what they wanted. So when Bubba and I was in that other band I was talking about, that band was 50-50, 50 covers, 50 originals. Bubba did most of the writing there, and Bubba had written a song that I just couldn't get out of my head. It just stayed in my head. So time went on. I left that band. He left that band. He kind of went his way. I went my way. I actually quit playing drums for about 9 months. I didn't touch anything. I just thought I was done with it, but I couldn't get the song out of my head. And I won't bore you with all the other stuff, but basically that song morphed into 2 songs off the EP, which was the title track Red Rain and the song Not That Way. But the goal was, when I talked to Bubba, that Bubba and I were just gonna put out some songs. So Bubba sings, plays guitar, and he can at least chip away at the bass enough to keep a sort of the rhythm going. And we were just gonna put it up on iTunes and just see where it went. And luckily it morphed into, we were having such a good time, we decided to look for a bass player, and then that turned into we had a show or two and we were a 3-piece band for a while. We opened for Salava, and I was trying to find a way to kind of jump that, jump sort of that little mountain of how can we start really making this happen. And and we found Stevie, and then we found Chip at Chipster PR, and that's really where it took off.
Right, and it's something that is really cool about the record, that the one that you just put out, is it's got that 80s vibe. I can hear it. I can't pinpoint what I'm hearing, but it's in the song. It's in the melody of the music. It's in the vocal melody. Maybe not so much lyrically, but I hear it, and I think that's really special that you captured that. It's about the whole record.
Yeah, thank you. I'm often reminded of, interviews I do, and people read sort of I guess, there's been some articles that were written about us, which all of them are wonderful, but there was an article I read that kind of caught me off guard a little bit. It says, we're trying to capture 80s music in today's world, and that's not what we're doing. What we're doing is we are playing songs we like that Bubba brings to the table, but our bands that we love and our musical heroes, if the term I could use, they're from the 80s, right. And that's the music that I listen to. And so, I'm a Van Halen fan. So I like, Alex Van Halen's my drum god, and yeah, I'm going to try to emulate that, and Bubba and Stevie and Larry will emulate who are their musical heroes. So yeah, there is some 80s flair to it. I mean, it's not, I wouldn't say it's on purpose, but it's there. And, like anything you do in life, your influences are there. But, and I love it. I mean, trust me. I mean, the 80s music was great. Let's not kid ourselves.
And like you say, it's got the flair and it's got the influence. It's not specifically glam metal.
No, it's not glam metal.
And especially lyrically. And if you were trying to do it, which in some ways you probably are, but if you were trying to do it, it almost would become a parody. And not to offend my partner TbT, you would become Steel Panther, right. And then you would sound like a parody trying to mimic an 80s band. You don't sound like that. It's something almost like a ghost in the machine is what it sounds like.
Sure.
It's ethereal. It's there. I just can't pinpoint what I'm hearing, but it's there.
Well, so, we're not a metal band. We're not a glam metal band. We're not a heavy metal band. And I say this in every interview. I stole this from David Lee Roth. We're a power hard rock band. That's it. And some people call us a power melodic band. The terms change every year, I mean, I remember growing up, AC/DC was like heavy metal, when we were younger, right? Well, AC/DC is just rock and roll,
Right.
But I think I would like to put ourselves in that realm of, just like I said, a power hard rock band, like an Aerosmith or a Van Halen or a AC/DC, but yeah, it's a funny thing trying to find a sound that's yours. I always felt like we found ours, but yes, it does have an 80s flair to it. So I'm thankful for that. That's what we grew up on.
Yeah, and you can hear it in every track. I mean, it's not all the same. Ace has heard me say that there are certain bands that I don't care to listen to because everything sounds the same. Even when they get to a ballad, everything sounds the same. You guys have a complete mix from, starting off very melodic on something and then going softer and then a little harder. We were just talking before we went on air. Bury Me Up to My Eyes is probably my favorite track, and it's just a freaking raunchy rock album or anthem that just, to me, it just kicks ass, and I just absolutely love that song.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a great song. We used to call and it's not, and people when I say this term, people will laugh at me. When we were writing, we were calling that the Megadeth song because it was probably one of their heavier songs on the album, but it's not a Megadeth song. So if anybody, it doesn't resemble Megadeth, but it was just heavy enough. And we have heavy songs. I mean, the title track "Red Rain" off the EP is heavy,
right?
Really heavy.
It really is.
And and Don't Look Back's pretty heavy, but yeah, the good news is, working with David, that's what David brings to the table. He gives us these, when you hate to use the old cliche, when you zig, I zag, but really that's what it is. And he takes us in a direction that we don't think about, because every band who writes a song think it's the greatest song in the world, right? We all think that. And then you come into a producer who's like, yeah, this needs a lot of work. And that happened to us. I mean, we need a lot of work, but as you can see, what we did is, we were lucky enough to find a producer on both of the EP and the new album. David didn't change our idea, and David didn't change the direction of the song. He just made it flow better. He made it, minus a piece here, add a piece here. Let's add this in the verse. Let's add this in the chorus. Let's take this way and so on. So that's the beauty, is we didn't have to shy away or be upset that the integrity that we had in the song was gone. He brought more integrity to the song. So
you were able to maintain ownership, that feeling of still having ownership of your own stuff.
Correct. And that means a lot, and the first time we worked with Dave, it was a little intimidating. David's got a lot of good credentials.
I was going to get it.
Yeah, and the thing about David though is, and it's funny I say this because David and I pick each other a lot, but he's willing to listen. He really is, and again, I think that means a lot. I think if I haven't worked with enough producers, I've worked with some, but that are staunch, this is the way it's going to be, and then there's some are like, well, what do you think? But he's not like that. He's got the vision. We send him the songs, he listens and listens and listens, and then he comes back with, well, I think this will work. And that to me is really what's great, because it's collaborative. It's not hey, it's my way.
Right, and he's worked with Hailstorm, right? He's
early on, yeah.
Early on,
I get that question a lot. I don't like to speak for David, so I do know that he has worked with Hailstorm. I don't know the time frame. I believe from the little bit that we talked about it was really early on. But yes, that is correct.
Right, but right there is a hard rock band. Early on, even there's hard rock elements, so he knows how to work with a band like you guys, like Red Rain. What was there at any point? Did he ever? He never tried to take over the songs, and he wasn't
never.
And he wasn't one to bring other people in to help you with the songs. It was, here's your songs. Let me help you. We'll collaborate. Am I correct?
Yeah. I mean, but like if you've heard the album, obviously we brought in a violinist. I mean, none of us play violin. So
I was going to ask which one was.
Yeah. So we brought in that, but yeah, I mean, we brought in musicians to enhance the song, not to play the song. So yes, that is correct.
Well, that leads us to George Lynch, I think, doesn't it?
Well, yeah. Well, that was a big enhancement. So,
sure.
But to be, and I'll be happy to tell you a story, but David had nothing to do with George Lynch.
Oh yeah. We'll get to the George Lynch story. Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. But no, David, no, he takes what you have, and I want to make sure I word this right. He takes what you have, and which is somewhat molded, and then he just he takes your piece of art that you have and really enhances it so that it's ready for showtime is the best way I can explain it. Probably doesn't make any sense, but he enhances the songs that we brought to him.
Right, and he does this in your case with a bit of a minimalist approach. It's not overproduced. It's not overdone.
No.
And your drums in particular do sound amazing.
Thank you.
We talked about this about a week ago.
Yeah.
About what was you were talking about the double bass, right? TbT.
Mm-hmm.
And how good it sounded. So he's brought out your drum sound very well.
He did. I did make one suggestion to him, and like I said, because I do all the business work for the band, and I talk to David a lot. The guys don't talk to him as much, so David and I've got this Really great relationship. He's really smart assy, and I'm smart assy, and we go back and forth, and it's great.
You fit in
But
this
the one thing that
podcast
I
just
asked him
fine.
was, and the one thing as a drummer that, and again, when I say these things, this is my opinion, what I like. I don't like a snap bass drum. I don't like a clicky bass drum. I like more of a thump.
A thud.
And so I asked him, I just said, hey, look, that's, if we can keep it in that realm. And he did. I mean, he doesn't go all that stuff, but you make those suggestions. And then there was a couple of things he kind of threw in a little bit of a snap to it, but he explains why. There was one story when we were doing Open Space with the violin, right? So I'm sorry, guys, excuse me. So real quick, the band went up and recorded all the scratch tracks and the drum tracks. Then those guys went back up. I was not able to go back up while they were laying down the guitars and vocals and stuff. So David called me and he said, all right, open your mind and, don't give me any crap. And I said, okay. And it had the violin. And I would have, never thought of that. The idea we had was Bubba to sit there with an acoustic guitar. And so I have a tendency to have a closed mind, but I did open my mind. But and it was great. But but he basically called me, and I didn't want to curse or anything. But he wasn't as nice when he said it. I mean, a little bit rougher. But basically, he's like, listen, open your mind up, because this is what we're doing on this one. And he's right, because he hears it better than I do. I'm too close to it. And he was 1,000% right on that song.
So no argument from anybody else with it either, because it sounds good, and I can see where he would have that vision, and that's why we're not producers,
right.
And we do this stuff.
Right. Well, that's the thing. So to go back a little bit, we've never had an argument with David. We've never had a disagreement, though. The first album we did, once again, I did the drums. I couldn't go back up. Back then, my wife's mother was very sick. So David would record the songs and then would call me every night and we go over it. But Red Rain, he had changed the vocal pattern of Red Rain. And that's the only time I ever disagree with him. I'm like, you can't change the pattern of that song. Bubba has to be aggressive. It's an aggressive song. Bubba has to have that anger. And he went back to it. So that was really, it wasn't even a disagreement. He was like, okay, I was trying some. But I think that's the only time that, I don't even want to say we didn't see eye to eye, that he tried something. So when you find somebody like that who helps you along, he's a keeper,
But that's okay. With that being part of the creative process, because that's going to bring more out of you guys as the performers, as the ones writing this. And pull from each other and learn. It's not a bad thing, and like you said, at least you came out of it unscathed.
Yeah. So I can't say enough things about Dave. Dave and I've got a really good friendship now, good relationship. I know it's funny, but you're over the moon. You think about where you've been in your musical career, and then you got this guy that's on your, you can push a button and talk to him in 2 seconds. That I never thought I'd be able to talk to a guy who was, in that realm. And so we're very proud to have him in our corner.
Yeah, I just pulled up his info, and sure, Hailstorm's on there, but so was Molly Hatchet.
Yep.
So was Patti LaBelle.
That's diverse.
Yeah, he worked with the Roots, I think. So
yeah.
Yeah, he's.
Yeah, there's a lot. He's got a lot. That's a lot. We could spend the rest of the time looking at all of his stuff. So with all these tracks, and you guys with this new album, do you have a favorite one?
I do. Don't Look Back.
Okay.
Not because of George Lynch. That's an added bonus, but. For me, I like the sort of heavier, grittier songs. Like I said, on the other EP, I like Red Rain because it's 0 to 60 and it's just got. And I feel like Don't Look Back has everything. It's got a good melody to it. It's got a great chorus, great verse, and then you throw in double bass during the lead, and There's a great lead that goes with it, obviously. I think Bubba's singing is point on. Again, the aggressiveness of Bubba. And I feel like the band was really aggressive recording that song. And I like that. That's what I like.
I just noticed something, too, that is 80s band related. You either had to be named after someone in the band, or you had to have a song that was reflective of the name of the band, such as Red Rain.
Right.
And I like that. I always like that. Night Ranger's got one called Night Ranger.
Right.
And it's a great song. How did you settle upon Red Rain as a name for that band or your band?
Well, it's really funny. And it's not an exciting story, to be honest with you. The song came before the name of the band. So the song came, and we came up, you're like everybody else, I mean, we were, you'd be driving down a road and you see them paving the road. You're like, oh, we could be Pavement X, or, you come up with something stupid. I don't remember. It might have been Larry. I don't remember. And somebody said, why don't we just call the band Red Rain after the song? And it stuck. I mean,
okay,
really,
so
it's not an exciting story. I wish I had something like we were out one night and, we were, and I don't know, we were driving in the car and the car hit something and we slid off the road. And, there's just no excitement to how we came up with the name.
we almost named this podcast Pavement X, so I'm glad you brought that up.
I felt like that name might have been taken 100 times. I don't know, But
so
really, the song was first. The song was already sort of cemented in, and Larry had gone home and drawn up sort of an amateurish, and I don't mean that mean, sort of logo. And I mean, our logo's changed like 16 times.
So is ours.
That's cool. Huh? Yeah.
So is ours.
But we took the logo, and then once things started going, we had a real professional who worked on artwork for big album art for big artists. We were able to get him, and he came up with the core of the logo, and then I've tinkered with the logo a few times.
The album covers look great. The EP is amazing. The Don't Look Back album cover looks really good.
Yeah,
they're very.
I will tell you a story about that. So, a lot with the album, there were a couple things that I knew were going on that I didn't tell the guys in the band. The first one is the logo. I had this vision of the bug. That's what we called this little thing right here, the bug. And I kind of took another band's idea, which I'll be honest is Queensryche. How Queensryche has that metal look to it, And that's what I wanted with the bug, with the red bleeding on it. And our artist did an unbelievable job. It came out 10 times better than I thought. But yeah, I kind of molded that after Queensryche. So hope Queensryche doesn't sue me. Yeah, that's it.
I could have made it a little smaller, but technology.
No, it's okay.
It's original. You can be inspired by something without stealing it. It's a very original piece. It looks great.
Yeah. It came out way better than I thought it would had ever come out. So our man Lee, who did it, just knocked it out of the ballpark, and the guys loved it. And then I was telling the guys my idea, and when you tell somebody an idea, they're like, I don't know, it doesn't sound good. But when you see it, the guys in the band loved it, and so yeah.
So I want to talk about Here I Am. You guys, especially if anybody that's actually listened to it and then went and watched the video, Here I Am is really a lot about mental health. That video that you guys put out with it is awesome. You've got different people in there holding up signs. If anybody needs to look at it, go check it out. But what was the inspiration behind that story, if you can share, behind that song?
Sure. So the album, for the most part, I mean, there's some some different songs. The album sort of was written over COVID, and that's sort of how you have to think of it. So, Don't Look Back really is a song about reflection. We were having a great run on the road. We were on and off with Tesla for 3 years. As there's great memories, there's some other, sad memories. And so, when COVID hit and life started again, don't look back. Let's make some new memories and great memories. And so that's why we named the album and the song that. And then Here I Am was written over COVID as well, when the world shut down and life as we knew it changed. I mean, come on, we all did. Couldn't go out. Nobody was around each other. I'm not in the world. It's hard for me to talk about it because I'm sure there are people who say I don't know what I'm talking about. They're probably right. But everybody struggled with some sort of mental depression, okay? People lost jobs, businesses closed. But also not including COVID, there are people out there who need help and people that have depression or in the military, PTSD or law enforcement or rescue and fire or the house mother who can't take anymore. I mean, there's more people out there than I can name. And so the song was written like, hey, look, we all know when people get really depressed and they get in their shell and they don't talk to anybody, I don't want to say 9 times out of 10, but we know what a lot of results are. And the results are they take their own life, which is just horrible.
Exactly.
And so we're trying to let people know, look, there's people out there who are willing to help. Just reach out. Now that's easier said than done, and I know that, but that's what the song's about. You're not alone. Somebody else is going through something. And I tell my daughter that all the time. My daughter's at school, and I said, look, be kind and be nice to everybody. Nobody knows what another human being's going through. They just don't.
Right.
And so that's what the song's about. And it's about if you're struggling, please, please, please reach out to a friend. Call the hotline. Do something. Just don't take that avenue because, you matter.
Right. And I think COVID has had a huge response in mental health awareness. As an outcome, I think musical artists have really taken the reins to this. We have talked about this a little bit, and I've been to many concerts where this is an integral part of the show, where the band leader pauses for a minute to talk about a song and about mental health, much like what you just did. I think we're getting as much of that as we did out of 9/11, where we had some great music come out of 9/11. You had the Alan Jackson song, you had Springsteen, you had Toby Keith put out something. There was always a response, and it was something that touched people. I think this song can be something like that.
Yeah, thank you. And you mentioned earlier, about Bury Me. Well, Bury Me, the song is called Bury Me Up to My Eyes. That's written about COVID, about seeing life through a mask. So, it's and that's what Bubba wrote about. Life changes, instead of us going out and, I know it sounds funny, but breathing fresh air, you're now breathing through a mask, and you're and it's up to here, and this is it. And so you're having to look through life with something different. So yeah, and so that's again, when we were talking earlier about the album being written, this is the time period it was written in, and these were the subjects we were writing about.
Right, and so many people did things like this where they were not able to tour, they weren't able to even meet to have in-person band meetings. You had bands recording over Zoom. Chris Jericho did that with Quarantine. They would record over Zoom. I think the Pretty Reckless wrote a record under COVID conditions. I think she wrote 2, but we just haven't heard the second one yet.
Right.
Yeah. So let's get to the George Lynch story real quick. How did George get involved in this?
So, after COVID shut everything down, for the first time in about 8 years, the band was torn in some directions. A little bit, I don't want to say infighting, but there was disagreements about how to move forward, if we were going to move forward. And I believe it or not, going in this, I did get a little depressed about, I didn't want the band to end. We were on such a good roll. So when I finally got my stuff together and I had talked to a couple people, I had made the decision, like, if we're going to do we made the decision, I had made the decision talking to one of our team members, not in the band, about, look, we've got to do it. We've got to do one more album. So, once I made that decision, I thought to myself one night, what can I do to make a splash to bring Red Rain back to where we were before COVID? Do we do a cover? Do we find a cover that we can make it our own? And again, I'm a Van Halen fan, but like, You Really Got Me. Can we take something like that and make it big? Or like can we get a guest? I'm sorry?
Like Great White.
Like Great White. And so, or do we get somebody to guest star on our album? So I went back and forth, and I have a friend, and if it's okay to mention, I'm sorry, it's another radio program, but
no, you're good.
All right, I like this, but one of my really, really good friends for the last 25 years is Neely from the Classic Metal Show. I've known Neely since 1998, and I knew Neely first, and very close with Chris Aiken as well. The Classic Metal Show guys have been instrumental in Red Rain getting to where we were off the ground and where we are today. But Neely is very, very close with the Dokken camp, very close, as well as Chris. But so I called Neely, and we were talking, and then I said, because I don't like to ask for help, and I don't like to ask a friend, like, hey, so-and-so, can we meet? That's not me. But I said to him, look, so I just told him the same scenario you did. Look, I got to make a splash, and I talked to Neely about everything. He knew the situation of the band, and I said, I need a guest. I'm thinking about George. And before I could even say George Lynch, Neely's like, done. I'm like, really? And he says, no, we'll get it done one way or another. And he was so instrumental in that. And so after a month or two, because he didn't see George, I think for 2 months after that conversation, he asked George, and George was gracious to do it. The kicker is nobody in the band knew, and I didn't even tell Chip.
Oh wow!
Our publicist. I didn't tell anybody. And so I remember when Neely called me and said, hey, I'm seeing George this weekend, I kind of felt good. Then I told Chip. Chip's like, this is a great idea. But like, everybody's got to say, okay, well, what if he doesn't do it? Who's next in line? So we started reeling off guitars that we, like, if George doesn't do it, who do we get?
Right.
And then when we were going to the pre-production, David came into Richmond. We did the pre-production in Richmond this time, where the first album or EP, we did it at David's studio, but he came to Richmond. And I remember talking to one of the members, and I won't mention who, and he was still skeptical about skeptical about the band moving forward. And I said, well, if that's how you think, but I think I got something you're going to like. He's like, what? And I said, well, I got George Lynch. He's like, no, you don't. I go, nah, I do. I got him. And that really put a pep in all of our steps again. It gave us that reason again, because COVID had shut it down so long. And man, the band responded tenfolds. We were all back in that where we started when we were on tour and all that stuff, and everybody just had a purpose.
Yeah, I can see where that would reinvigorate everyone. With
it really me especially, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you want to be in on that. You want to be the guy that leaves, and then George Lynch comes in and does something really cool.
Right.
So Shred didn't think he was replaced, right? He could walk in and George. What?
Actually, I called Bubba a week before and said, "Hey man, you're gonna have to be the singer now, not just because Bubba in his own right, real quick, Bubba's a lead guitarist. Stevie's unbelievable, but Bubba's a shredder as well. And so I just said, look, and Bubba wanted to play guitar, and I said, you might put the guitar down. He's like, well, I'm not putting the guitar down. I said, well, I found your replacement whether you like it or not. And he basically said bullshit, and I'm sorry if I can say that or not. I'm sorry, but
you're good.
And I said, well, okay, well then you tell George Lynch he can't play in the band. And he was like, no way. I'm like, yeah, way, it's happening.
I would have sit there, thinking maybe you either got the Wish version of George Lynch or, the real one. But did you guys have to send the track to him and let him lay it out? How'd that work?
We did. So, and that's another thing. That's a great point you just made, because I knew in my mind what I wanted from George. And I'd been reading a lot of articles that George was talking about not really being a shredder anymore, and he wanted to be, more melodic. And I think there was an article that said, look, yeah, Dokken's gone, I'm no longer doing that stuff. And I'm like, I got to capture this last Dokken George. But we had laid down most of the tracks. I was lucky enough to be on the email chain, but I was obviously not the lead guy to talk to George. He ain't gonna talk to me. So we had our team of people talking, and then one day out of the blue, he emailed and said, hey, I need the track right away. I have to leave now to go to Germany or something. And my glasses are crooked. I'm sorry. I have to leave. So can we get the track today? And so I called Chip. He didn't answer. And I called David. And David's like, I can't deal with this now. And I'm like, well, what do I do? So I said, so I emailed back in this whole email channel, like, hang on, George, I'm working on it. And then he starts talking to me through email. He's like, well, let's get the track. And I'm like, okay. So I called David. David said, okay, let's just send him the track. So we sent him the track. And then all of a sudden I get this, what's your phone number? So I gave him my phone number. And next thing you know, 2 minutes later, I'm on the phone with George Lynch. I mean, and I'm a drummer. Now look, let's
right?
put that in perspective. I mean, I'm not a guitarist, but being a Van Halen fan and knowing that George is that type of player, I don't get starstruck a lot, but I mean, the whole time I've got my phone, and here it's like this, and I'm just looking at it like, really, this is him. And he was very gracious, very nice, and really what he was supposed to do was only supposed to play the lead. That was it. That's all we asked him to do. And I won't bore you with all the other details. And finally, at the very end of the conversation, he said, what do you want me to do? And I said, well, we asked you to play the lead, and that's fine, but I then said, look, you've done this long enough, George. Do what you do naturally. Well, you guys heard the track, and the funny part is we had to cut a lot out.
Oh, wow.
and the funny part is I thanked him so many times, but the last thing I texted him was, hey, George, I have to ask you this question. Did you at least like the song? What'd you think? And he wrote, it was a really fun song to play. I really enjoyed it. I overplayed like hell. Use what you want. And I thought that was great.
That is great.
And I feel like we got the Dokken George Lynch.
Oh, without a doubt.
You being a Van Halen fan, he was around at the beginning when Eddie was knocking around L.A., that whole scene. So correct. George was there, doing the same types of things. I mean, he literally was there when Eddie was just starting that stuff out. Right. So that had to be cool.
It's surreal, I mean, it's unbelievable. As a matter of fact, I was explaining this to somebody the other night. 15 years ago, you're going out to meet some friends at a bar, and we all did this. When you're getting ready, you turn on MTV, right? And who's on MTV? Tesla, George, Extreme. And then you fast forward to where we are now and have been lucky enough to be on stage with all of them. And you're sitting there and you're looking going, this is unbelievable. And we didn't get to meet George personally, but it doesn't matter. It's a win, He played on, as Stevie said, he played on our album, and we have him.
It's
unbelievable.
You being a drummer, I play drums as well.
Okay.
So I have a list of favorite drummers. You tell me if any of mine are on your list. Neil Peart, John Bonham.
No, I'm just kidding. Are you kidding? I think he's on everybody's list. I even think he's on a guy that plays a triangle in a band. They got to be on everybody's list.
That's me. I'm the triangle guy.
Yeah.
Benny Appice.
Yeah.
Just for the Dio stuff.
So are we talking like, all right, before we do that, so you're saying some of the greatest drummers of all time?
My favorites.
Your favorites. Okay.
My personal. Yeah. So Neil, John Bonham, Vinny Appice, Gilmore.
I didn't hear you say Bonham. Bonham, definitely. Yes.
Yeah. And I'm a big Triumph fan, so Gilmore. And then Eric Carr.
Oh, yeah.
Just for of the night. Just for that record. Because that record was just made for drums.
Yes.
The way it was recorded, it's amazing.
Yes. Yeah. No, you're right. Mine's a little different, but okay. So
that's what I want to know.
You forgot the one guy that I've been talking about all day, Alex Van Halen.
Alex Van Halen, who
Keith
totally
Moon.
changed his drum sound. When they moved into the Van Hagar stuff, totally changed how he played drums.
Well, again, and this is one thing that David and I spoke about, like the sound, like, Van Halen fans generally don't like Diver Down, I love Diver Down. I mean, it is what it is. It's a lot of cover. But the drum sound on Diver Down are some of the greatest sounding drums ever. The snare just has that unbelievable, almost wooden pop to it. Rim shot wood. His bass drums are... That's the sound I strive to get. But Alex would be, obviously, for me, number one. But Keith Moon.
Yeah.
Tommy Aldridge. I mean, but the list goes on. There's so many great drummers.
So many. It's like naming guitar players or singers. There's so many of them. Let me ask you a quick question about another Van Halen point. What has it been, 2 years or 3 years since Eddie's passed? 2 years?
2020, I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, 3 years. No Van Halen tribute. Nothing has been, not even a whiff. When Taylor Hawkins passed, another great drummer, we had two within, a month? We had one in London, one in L.A. But we can't get together on one of the greatest guitar players ever and have a tribute.
Well,
what do you think about that?
I'm personally glad they don't do anything. I think it's going to be a train wreck.
Yeah.
I am one of the things as a young kid that drew me to Van Halen was David Lee Roth. The guy was just the showman, the look, the attitude, along with probably three of the greatest musicians to ever play, which made the perfect suit for Van Halen. But as we all see on the internet, it pains me to say, Dave, I don't know how much of right mind Dave's in. You read what you read if he's that difficult or he's not, but I think I think if you're not going to, with Eddie being considered probably one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest rock guitarist of all time, it's got to be done right. And if it's not done right, I mean, with Taylor Hawkins, it's done right because even when Taylor was alive and the Foo Fighters were playing, they always had special guests anyway. You know what I mean? That wasn't something new. Van Halen didn't have that.
No.
Van Halen didn't have special guests come up and really play with them. And so, yeah, you could get Steve Vai, who I love. Steve Vai could do it, They're talking about Joe Satriani. I am not really a Satriani fan. I know he's great. I don't know. I don't know. I'd rather them not do it than it really come across not good.
I think people would line up to do it if someone just would say the word. I think the holdup is right where you said it was. I think that's, and I don't know why or what the reason would be.
It's funny. It's funny. I read, a lot of the stuff that I read, and again, I've been a Van Halen fan for so many years, and I know there's somebody that's a bigger fan than I am and probably will give you different information than I have. But the information that I read is Alex drives the train. It's Alex Van Halen who drives the train, not Dave. You know, and I even believe, and I've tailed off on Van Halen news since Eddie's passing. I try to follow Wolfie a little bit, but I believe Wolfie even said, "Look, Al's the guy." So, how much does David Lee really have the influence if Al's the guy? You just don't know.
Or are they both just so dysfunctional the way it is?
Yeah, could be. It also could be Al. I say this, we don't know for sure, but in all the years professionally played, Al's never played with anybody else but his brother.
Right.
Does Al want to play with somebody else?
I'm
asking questions. I don't have the answers. I don't know Alex Van Halen.
Yeah, right. That would feel so weird, maybe to him.
It might be, and it may be that he, these are things. Everybody, we all point the finger at Dave because Dave is Dave.
Yep.
He's an attention hound. But that's what made David Lee Roth David Lee Roth. I had this great conversation when we opened for Extreme with Gary Cherone, and I was not a fan. But I tell you, after talking to him, he was one of the most gracious, down-to-earth guys I ever spoke to. And I had a good friend of mine who was backstage with us. That my friend and I've been going to Van Halen shows for years, or David Lee Roth solos. And he just kept looking at me going, don't do it. And I was like, I got to ask, And Gary was so gracious in talking about it. And the first thing he said to me, he's like, well, which corner are you in, Sammy or Dave? That was like breaking the ice. And I said, I got to be honest, Gary, I mean no disrespect, but I'm an original Van Halen fan. I'm a David Lee Roth fan. And he said, well, so am I, And he went into the whole story, and again, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I remember this vividly. He said, look, people didn't like me. I wasn't Dave. I wasn't Sammy. He goes, but I tell you what, and I remember him saying, he says, when the greatest guitarist in rock calls you up and asks you to join him, what are you going to say, no?
Right. Right.
It's a good point.
You can't blame Gary because no one likes that record.
No.
You can't blame Sammy because he's not Dave.
I did. I'll be honest. I did.
Well,
which was awful. But
I'm one of those try to be a diplomat. I like all Van Halen, but I'm a big Sammy fan. And you're about our age, and I always felt like the Van Hagar type stuff was more our Van Halen. That was what we grew up on from 85, 88, all through there. I didn't listen to any old Van Halen after that until I got to college again and started breaking it back out.
Well, now I may be a little bit older than you. I grew up with the original Van Halen.
Well, I was in junior high when Jump came out, and that was all I knew. So I was 13.
Yeah, I'm
12.
I'm a little older. Not much, a little. But I grew up. So believe it or not, this is a funny story. When I was 10, I went to a buddy of mine's house who was at 10 was kind of a rebellious kid, and his parents were away, and he threw on "Running with the Devil." This is basically when it came out, and it changed my life forever.
Yeah,
that song, that album, changed me forever. I like Sammy Hagar. I hated Sammy for the longest time. And anybody who'd ask me, I was like, he's a jerk, whatever. I don't know Sammy. Sammy seems like a great guy. And I loved Sammy Hagar in Montrose. I thought Sammy was killer in Montrose. He was great. If you remember the album HSAS.
Yes.
With Neil Sean.
Yep.
Love it.
Great album. And Sammy had some killer stuff. But whoever took my guy's spot, I didn't like. Whether I liked him or not. But the difference to me is when people ask me is, again, you asked me about Red Rain and my songs. Van Halen with David Lee Roth was a dirtier, grittier band.
Gritty band.
Gritty. Very gritty.
Listen to Fair Warning.
Yeah. Oh, Fair Warning. But, it's even funnier is, again, somebody will ask me what's the best Van Halen album. Well, we all know it's one. Let's not kid ourselves. So You take that off the shelf, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what's the best Van Halen album with David Lee Roth?
Ooh.
Diver down.
Women and Children First.
Women and Children.
Women and Children
Okay.
First,
Yep.
easily. Because it's heavy.
In a simple rhyme.
Simple rhyme. My favorite Van Halen song of all time, probably Eddie's greatest lead, in my opinion. In a simple rhyme.
Yeah. It's a great
I mean, that
song.
lead is blistering. But it had Romeo's Delight, and it's a little bluesy. Fools is a little bluesy intro. I mean, it had everything. But it was gritty. It was dirty. That, to me, is the difference between the David Lee Roth era and the Sammy era. That's it. Sammy put out great music with Van Halen. There's no doubt about it. And you're the first show I've ever said that on. I know everybody would always ask me. I tell them go to hell, but you're the first show I admitted that on.
Have you been on any other shows today?
No.
Well, then we are the best one that you'll ever do today.
You got that right.
And Sammy even said that he had talked to Eddie about changing it, even changing the name, because it was something different. It's not what you were doing; it's something different. But that brand is so big, you know. It's the brand.
I don't think there's any way you could have changed that name.
No.
Yeah.
No, and back to Alex, and not wanting to play with anyone, and this would affect everyone. But you could get, for this tribute, you could get Wolfie, Sammy, Mikey, you've Satriani or someone, and you got Alex. The problem is when you look out, you've got familiar faces, but that one spot is a different guy.
Right.
He's played with all those other guys, but that guy, that's his brother, and he's not there.
Yeah, that, and also, you know, what's that saying? You might be able to replicate. You might be able to. What is it? You might be able to duplicate, but you can't replicate. What is that? You know, but there's just no Eddie Van Halen.
Right.
It just isn't. And you know, and watching Wolfie do the tribute show and do Hot for Teacher, unbelievable. And to me, if anybody was going to play it should be Wolfie. And I just don't think he wants to do it. And again, this is from what I read and what I try to take in, and I try to listen to Wolfie's show. And I mean, that poor kid, I feel so bad for him because you're living in the shadow of a legend, and, you know, and people want him to go play live. They want to hear Van Halen. No, that's not what he does.
Yeah. His own stuff is amazing live. It's so good.
I wouldn't want to go see. I would not want to pay. And again, I don't know what a ticket price is to see him. I wouldn't want to pay $30 to see him play Van Halen. I wouldn't.
Well, you're old enough to remember Hank Jr. when he came out, and everyone wanted him to be Hank Williams.
Yep.
And that's all he did was do Hank Williams songs for years, and look what it did to him. Well, he fell off a mountain. But
yeah, it kills you. It does. It kills you. Because that's what people expect. And, you know, it's funny because, you know, I remember playing years ago in cover bands, and, you know, when you're playing in a cover band, you're taking that song as close as you can, but you make it your version, and the people listen to it don't understand that. And I actually had an incident years ago. I played in this band, and we did Flying High Again by Ozzy, right? And so we took a set off, and I had this couple come over and talk to me, and I'm talking this years and years ago. And they were like, hey, we really like the band. I said, oh, thanks a lot. And they said, but on the second verse, you know, they started picking apart, like, you know, you hit a cymbal, because I'm a big Ozzy fan, and you hit a cymbal here. This is like, dude, I'm not an Ozzy's band. And so that actually stuck with me for a long time. And when I decided with Bubba to do Red Rain, it's like, we're going to do this our way. And you know what? If nobody likes it and we fail, we did it our way. Because, you know, we are older now. There was really nowhere to go. You guys know the music business. It's a tough business. There's not that we were in it for money, but there is no money in it. So we have jobs.
Right.
And so
it's like podcast.
We were going to live and die by our own sword. And that's where we're at.
Well, with that being said, now what are we looking for from Red Rain in the future? I mean, I'm sure you guys are going to do another album at some point, but I mean that's going to be down the line since we've just got this one out, and I know you've been doing a lot of interviews, having a lot of conversations, plugging this. But I've read before where maybe going on tour is really not in the cards because I mean that's time away from families and all that. And like you just kind of said, unless it's going to pay the bills, all of them for everybody and set your family up, that's a big choice to be made.
It is. But we've saved some time, and so if we could go do a 3-week run. I mean, nobody's doing year-long tours unless you're the Stones. I mean, and they could do 10 years and still not break the bank. But so the next step, the progression is let's get this album out. Let's get as much press as we can. Let's get people interested in the press or the album, excuse me. And now we're starting to plotting for 2024 shows, whether it's a one-off or a week or a 2-week run. So that's where we're moving forward now. So that's all discussion. Right.
Would you like to do shows where you open for a band, a tour like that? Or are you looking at things like the festivals? Like you could probably get on Rocklahoma, things like that pretty easily. But you're also...
It's not as easy as you think it is, to be honest with you.
But you're also off on a stage in a cornfield away from so many people. I don't know what attraction you would get out of it. You might be better off just touring with a bigger band, wouldn't you think?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's a tough spot because, we can, I would say every band does this, but we've said it in our press release, so we'll say it. But we're a live band. We enjoy playing live. We that's where our point really comes across when we're, and I'm sure this for every other band, but so we do want to get back on stage, whether it is a one-off, whether it is in a cornfield, we don't care. But what people don't understand is it doesn't matter where we want to play. It's getting the promoter to get you to play and to get in the right, the right band, the right crowd, because when you're an all original hard rock band and nobody's ever heard of you, and you start climbing a little bit where you're starting to get just a little bit of, I don't want to use the word notoriety, but enough where people are starting to notice you a little bit, that takes 4 or 5 years to even get there. But if you make one wrong move, you've just knocked yourself off the ladder. So we're very methodical about what we do. We're very methodical. Chip and I talk a lot. We're very methodical about how we move forward on shows, press, even the album when we were doing it. It was all thought out. So that's the planning stage we're at now, is the shows are next. Now that's where we're going to really start focusing. So yeah, I didn't really answer your question because that's a hard one to answer, because we would play wherever somebody would want us, because you're only going to get your name out even further if people see you, whether it's one person in Montana who's never seen us, who likes us. That's one more person that's on the team.
Well, you can drive down the road about, 45 minutes or so, hit Busch Gardens, go there. I used to work at Busch Gardens there for a while there in Williamsburg and seen a few bands there. So it was nice. Listen, Sammy, we don't want to keep you for the rest of the evening, but we want to thank you extremely amount for stopping by and chatting with us today. We, of course, have to plug the album again. It's Don't Look Back. It's out now. Vinyl, CD, 8-track, cassette, wherever you can find it. Get it and listen to it. I think you're going to, we got to bring up the 8-track. We think you're going to like it. Sammy with Red Rain, thank you very much. We got to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, of course, Music and More Records and Bad Company Barbecue. We appreciate their support. Sammy, we're going to ask for you to hang on the line here real quick as we bring this to an end. Thanks, everybody, for joining, everybody that was in the chat, everybody that's listening after this live. Ace and I were scheduled to go see Ace Frehley tomorrow, but unfortunately that show got postponed this afternoon. So we're free tomorrow if anybody wants to do something. But we'll catch you guys again next week. We should be back to our regular scheduled Tuesdays, and we've got some other guests that we're getting lined up. But again, Sammy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Again, I'm sorry we had to postpone it a week. Something came up personally that I couldn't get away from. But thank you so much. It was. I really enjoyed speaking to both of y'all, and I could have gone all night talking. So
really,
we'll
so could have we.
If y'all would have me back, I'll come back. We'll talk again. So
that sounds good. Please pass on our congratulations to the rest of the band, and best of luck to you in the future.
Thank you so much. Appreciate y'all's time.
Absolutely.